All right, good afternoon. How's everybody doing today? Hopefully the audience members are doing well. Whitney, I don't know if you wanted to say anything before we get started.
So welcome everyone to our Women Veterans Empowerment Dialogues Women Veterans in Law panel. We're so excited to have three amazing women veteran lawyers and Jess, who is in law school today, to do the panel. And Jess, I'll hand it over to you now to have the panelists introduce themselves.
Excellent. As you can see, I'm actually at the law school. I felt like this would be an appropriate background. I don't keep all these law books in my house because I have to get away from it somehow, but I'm excited to join these three ladies today. So I'm Jessica Nelson. I go to the University of Michigan Law School. I went through WSP in 2017. Today we have Trinity Hatch, Morgan Varty, and Alex Trobe, and I'll let them introduce themselves. So Trinity, if you'll go first.
Yeah, my name is Trinity Hatch. I'm currently a deputy district attorney in Washington County in Oregon. We're about 40 minutes outside of Portland, just for reference. I was previously enlisted in the United States Air Force from 2010 to 2015, and then I did a year of reserves. So I have officially been a civilian since 2016, and I went to law school at Lewis & Clark, which is in Portland.
Thank you so much, Trinity. Morgan, we'll have you go next.
Yeah, thank you. Well, hi, everybody. So currently I'm an assistant attorney general for the Gambling Control Division in Montana. And I'm going to do the lawyerly thing and say, I'm here in my official capacity, and anything I say does not represent my employer in any way. So just wanted to get that out of the way. I am a veteran of the Marine Corps, and I served from 2009 until 2014. I went to my undergrad at Penn State, which share that with Whitney, but I went to law school at Barry University School of Law in Orlando, Florida. So.
Excellent, thank you. And Alex?
Great, hi, it's so good to be here and meet you all. My name's Alex. I was a graduate of the U.S. Air Force Academy in 2013. I did 5 years in the Air Force as a public affairs officer before going to law school at Boston University. And then I graduated, and I'm currently clerking in New York City with the U.S. Court of International Trade, and it's been great so far.
That's excellent. I love the diverse positions that you're all at and the careers that you're following. I'd love to hear what led to your interest in pursuing a career as an attorney. And Alex, why don't we start with you this time?
So as a public affairs officer in the Air Force, we really intersected a lot with the command staff, the legal staff, the kind of like the special units, and it was so incredible to see how every decision from discipline to national security really touched law. And I knew that that was something that I really wanted to be involved with later down the line if I got the opportunity, because just the decision-making process that structured everything that we do from a DoD standpoint in the law was just a really fun challenge and like a really rewarding way in which to route all of those decisions in like legal terms. And so when the opportunity came for me to go to law school, I knew that I wanted to be a part of that and see how that structure kind of worked in the real world, both the private and the public sector. So there's so much, that framework that I learned in the Air Force, seeing how close the decision makers are to the law, has really been true kind of in all different areas. And I'm at the beginning of my career, but I'm excited to learn more as we go forward.
Thanks, Alex. That's awesome. I love that you took your experience from the military and kind of that's what led you to wanting to be an attorney. Morgan?
Yeah, so I would say mine's kind of similar to that. It certainly stemmed from my time in the Marine Corps, and I was fortunate enough to be at a presidential unit. So I saw a really different side of government. more in the executive branch. And it just raised a lot of questions for me about like, why are these things happening? How are they happening? Like, why do some laws seem to be invoked in this way and not in others? And it really piqued my curiosity. And I was taking college courses while I was actually in active duty. So I kind of already had the plan, like, okay, let's just get this, bachelor's over with, and then we can go to law school and kind of see what my options were and see what the future would hold.
Excellent, thank you. Trinity?
Yeah, I will also give my military time some credit, but in a completely different way. It kind of narrowed down what I know I didn't want to do. I loved being in the Air Force, but I was a cybersecurity specialist, which is a lot of computers. So it's not something that I was passionate about. And as everyone on this panel knows, in order to cross train, it's like a very small window, and I missed my window to, be a paralegal or whatever. So when I got out, it was like a process of elimination. I thought I wanted to be a teacher for a little while I was an undergrad. And right around the same time where I was kind of failing at doing after school programs with young kids, it was not going well for me. I actually got called for jury duty. And while I was on jury duty, the defendant was pro se, which just means that he was representing himself. He didn't have his own lawyer. And as I was sitting, in the jury box, I'm like, man, if he could do it, I could do that. So it was just kind of my calling, I guess, like to give myself a little bit of credit and like more a confidence boost, if nothing else. So yeah, so again, at the same time as I was not doing well as a potential teacher, I just decided to take that and decide to be a lawyer instead. So I did my English degree instead of my teaching credentials and went from there.
That's wonderful, thank you. I can relate to that, and like learning what I didn't want to do, and that's what led me to something that I did want to do. So I definitely relate to that. Can you share a little bit of insight on your transition from the military to undergrad or to law school, and then from undergrad to law school, if you took that path? And I'd also like to encourage audience to put in your questions to the Q&A, and I'll ask live, or you can wait till the end and ask them yourselves. So we'll start with Morgan this time.
Yeah, so my transition from the military to undergraduate, I had about a year left, was really rough. I'm not going to lie. I got out as a sergeant, and I was also a police officer. So I was used to wielding a certain amount of authority and command over things. And that just isn't true when you go to college. You don't control your classmates. You don't really control the people around you or have a say at all. So that was the biggest transition for me, is readjusting my demeanor, my attitude, the way I had an outlook on my new objective, which was me. Like, I only had to worry about me. And I think that was the first time in 5 years that was necessarily true. As far as the workload goes, I didn't really come into too many problems there. I think the Marine Corps really prepared me with a good work ethic, with discernment, like realizing what was important and what isn't, what I need to dedicate my time to, what I can spend free time on. It really helped with that. And, by the time I went, I was older too, which I think just sometimes helps in that transition in general. And then I'll say from undergraduate to law school, it was a lot less rough. I had kind of worked through a lot of the maybe mindset things that I had faced in my undergrad time. But I would say, a lot of my classmates, I think in law school, are just, this was like the biggest thing that they were going through. Like, this was the most consequential thing they had faced in their life to that point. And that wasn't necessarily true for me. So I had a different point of view. And I feel like, you know, some of my friends I made in law school, I'm still friends with to this day. And we really helped each other, because in a lot of times when they were stressing out, or, you know, something was the end of the world, like, I was able to kind of ground them, and maybe they helped me realize, you know, it's a little, you should be studying a little harder, or maybe you should be focusing a little more. And a good example of that is my entire time in law school, I said, I'm not going to be a lawyer. Like, I don't want to be a practicing attorney. I'm not going to take the bar. I'm not doing any of that. And my last year, you know, watching all of my classmates and some of my closest friends in my study groups start preparing for the bar, I was like, what? I have to take the bar exam. Like, they helped me realize, like, you didn't do the last 3 years not to become licensed. So my transition was a lot more fun, I guess, into law school, if that makes sense.
I'm envious of that lack of pressure, although I do understand that I do try to take that perspective, that there are harder things that I've been through in life, and law school is just another thing that I've got to do, and just try to enjoy it while I can. I'm in finals mode right now, so I don't know if I'm enjoying it right now, but the rest of the
It'll
time I try to
pass.
do that. Thank you. Trinity?
Yeah, so like I said, I got out of active duty, so full time in 2015, and I was afraid to let it go all the way. So I did like a soft transition, because I did reserves for a year. So I was in the reserves while I was doing undergrad. I went to undergrad at California State University, East Bay, so in the Bay Area. And I actually found it harder to keep that military tie in the reserves and do, you know, half-time in the reserves and half-time as a civilian. I found it more difficult than just being full-time, you know, as a student. I don't know, I thought I wanted that comfort blanket, but eventually I just kind of cut ties, because it was hard to go back and forth between being a civilian, doing my English degree, and then being a sergeant doing tech stuff. They were just so different. I didn't see them meshing very well together. So I don't know, I think same thing. I tried to do this soft entry, and then once I was really able to just let myself fully immerse into undergrad, like Morgan said, you kind of have this perspective going into it as an older student. And it wasn't the work that was hard. It was just transitioning to being like a normal person. I remember my husband at the time told me I said a lot of like weird military taglines. Like, I think I told people to stand by a lot. I'm like, oh, just stand by. Okay, as you were, we're good. So it was just like verbiage, just kind of being normal, and I don't know, just relaxing into it. But then law school was actually really nice, because when I was in undergrad, you know, for a while I was doing the reserves, and then I was just going to school and working. But then by the time I got to my 1L year, I had the luxury of having that GI Bill. So I was really able to just do school for a year and not have to work. So I think being able to immerse yourself in school and just get the work done, that wasn't hard. And then again, you have this perspective of, this is not the hardest thing I've done. This is just the hardest thing I'm doing right now. And it's going to pass, and it's going to be worth it in the end. So I'll just leave it at that. It's going to be worth it in the end, Jess, even though you're having a hard time with finals right now.
Excellent way of putting it, Trinity. Thank you so much. Alex?
So I had a little bit different of an experience, because I had done my undergrad in conjunction with my military experience, and I had moved over my 5 years of being in the military. I had moved so often. I had deployed twice. It was, I think I really did not give myself enough time for that transition. And so I was on active duty on terminal leave when I started my first semester of law school. And I really thought that, no sweat, I've PCS'd 10 times. What's one more move to Boston? I've met new people before, but it was such a different experience and such a different kind of environment that is so, I hate to say competitive and singular, that I really, really struggled my first semester, because I had lost kind of touch with the things that were really important to me, which were a sense of community, a sense of mission, a sense that we were all on the same team and that we all wanted to succeed. And that was kind of taken as a given. And to meet people who necessarily didn't care about me because they were, which was crazy to me. Of course they don't care about me. They don't know me. We're all competing for the same kind of jobs, but it was really difficult. And I was able to connect with some of the veterans, the older veterans at BU. There are 5 of us at the time. And so we had a really strong group, and they really helped me reframe what Morgan and Trinity were talking about, that this is not the hardest day of your life. You have gone through harder things. There is so much that you have already overcome. This is just a new set of rules. And you know what? You've done that before. Also, something that was really, really important for me was to just kind of go back to my roots. And what was important to me was giving back to the community, feeling part of this like broader experience. And so I had the opportunity to volunteer as a student with Veterans Legal Services in Boston, which is a free legal aid clinic that gives legal services to underprivileged veterans in Massachusetts. And so once a week, me and a few of the veterans at BU would go down and volunteer in the clinic, doing intakes, talking to veterans, helping them connect to access to justice, and finding ways to kind of use our legal skills and our military background to make a difference in those communities. And it changed my whole perspective on what it was I was doing at school. I was able to come back more focused and refreshed because I knew that I'm not just reading case law. This is the goal, is to be able to get the skills to make a difference in the future, and that this is leading towards something. So my first semester, not so great. My second semester, much better. My grades picked up. I was much happier. And that's been a theme for me, is that on my worst days, just to remember, what am I doing here? What's the purpose? And how can I touch base with the things that are kind of my core values?
Excellent. I love that. I think remembering your roots and going back to them and really knowing why you did something, that's amazing, Alex. Thank you. And I wanted to ask, how did you decide, and how do you continue to decide what path that you want to follow in the law? Because there's many different paths you can take. There's a lot of different turns. I think about our most recently selected Supreme Court justice, and she had taken very many paths, public defense being one of them, clerking being another, at many different levels. How did y'all decide, and how do you continue to decide what path you want to follow in the law? And we'll start with you, Trinity.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And that's why I actually love having Alex and Morgan on this panel, because I like hearing about their stuff. It's just so different. I feel I'm in criminal law, so I actually feel like I'm here because I'm not very creative. Like, you see it on TV so often, it's very intuitive. So I don't know, for me, it's just something that I had always been interested in, and the work day to day is interesting. I went to Lewis and Clark, which is in Portland, and they have a really great environmental program. And I remember thinking, oh, I want to do this environmental work because, it's a great program and it's important work. It's just, you can't fake it if you don't like it. And I think that shows in your work. So my theme is like, I've doubted myself, and then I think I can't do it. So kind of when I want to be a lawyer, I didn't think I could. I saw a pro se person do it, and I decided I can. So I didn't think I could do criminal law. I didn't think I could be a trial lawyer, but I went ahead and I went to our mock trial classroom in our court, and I did really well. So it was nice to like push myself to do something new, and then just confirm for myself that I can do it, and then really pursue it 100%. So initially I had wanted to be a public defender, and but I did have a friend in this DA's office who encouraged me to come to this position and apply. So I've actually interned in this office that I'm working at for 2 years prior to becoming an attorney here. So that was kind of a long way to say it's just, you can't fake what you're not interested in. And I'm glad that I ended up in the criminal realm, and I'm glad that I tried the things which confirmed that for me, because I think I would be very unhappy in other places. But I love hearing about how you guys got to those places, because it's just not intuitive, all the different routes that you can take in the law. So there's a place for everyone.
Thank you. Alex, and I love that you said that there's a place for everyone. You're gonna find it regardless of how long it takes you to get there or what paths you take to get there. Alex, I saw you unmuted yourself, so I'm gonna go to you next.
Oh, yes, Trini, that like really resonates. I think that my experience before law school was with the JAG Corps, and in my mind I thought, well, that's what a lawyer looks like, and that's what I want to do, and that's what I was attracted to, and so of course I'm going to pursue that route. And as a first year, I think as a 1L, like our first icebreaker, we sat around the table, and like the student leader was like, are you going to do transactional or litigation? Like, I don't even know what those words mean. I thought that we all, prosecuted, or we were prosecution or defense. I don't even know what this vocabulary is. I'm so unprepared. And it was a little scary, but also very empowering, because law school is a great opportunity to ask those questions of, what do you do? Why do you like doing that? How did you find your way there? And it's very rare that someone, I think, in my experience, says, I grew up wanting to do this. This is the only thing I wanted to do. I found a direct path to that. It's really just a really interesting way in which people said, I thought I wanted to do that, but then I met someone who was really cool and they were passionate. And so that sparked my passion. And it's been kind of a fun process. And so when I was a 1L, I kind of realized I have to throw that mindset out. And I really just was like hungry for knowledge and kind of that traditional junior officer mentorship role. I'm like, how can I find people who have walked this path before me, and how can I learn from them? And so I met an incredible amount of people my first year and throughout law school, and just saying, can you connect me with someone that you think might be doing environmental law and can tell me what that really looks like on a day-to-day, or corporate law or transactional work, which I quickly learned transactional work is not for me, but that's totally okay. But a lot of trial and error. And I think my advice for people on this path would just be to give themselves permission to change their minds, and that it's totally not a linear path. And there's, like Trinity said, there's a place for everyone.
Thank you very much, Alex. I appreciate that. I'm sure we all do. Morgan?
Yeah, Alex, I really liked your point there of it's not linear. And I can say that my decision-making and kind of journey to where I am now is definitely not linear. And, I'm kind of a control freak. I think I blame the Marine Corps for that, but whatever. I really like to have things planned. Like, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. And that was part of my transition leaving the military, was letting go of that and start. If I like something, like you were saying, Alex, you go ask questions about it. You find out. When I was an undergrad at Penn State, I was really interested in criminal law. And I walked into a local firm and I said, you guys need an intern? And I started interning, and I got these wonderful experiences that, helped spur my desire to go to law school. But I would also say, I think there's a good part of being a veteran going to law school or even active duty is, you've had other experiences. Like there's a lot, like when you first go to law school, there's a lot of talk about, oh, I have to get on law review. And you hear that everybody who's on law review is just going to be the best lawyer you've ever heard. Well, that might be true. I mean, obviously some of the better students definitely tend to go to law, but I didn't, that wasn't something that seemed fun to me. So I wanted to be, good at whatever I did when I left law school. But for me, that didn't mean I had to be on law review. So like finding the things that, you know, we leave the military with a work ethic. Like I've said before, we leave with the sense of knowing ourselves. And I felt like I know myself and my work ethic enough. I didn't have to have editor of law review, maybe to get where I wanted to go, even if I didn't know where that was. And during my second year in law school, I applied for the White House internship program, and lo and behold, I got in, which was amazing. And it was a great experience. And then after that, I said, I am not working in Washington, D.C. So lovely experience, but kind of ruled things out. And after that, my path was just kind of assessing where I was in that moment, what my desires were in that moment, and pursuing them, being open to opportunities. I generally say no to like everything. But opportunities helped me say yes to things and assess things that I wouldn't normally do. And I'll kind of wrap this up by saying, actually, while I was at the White House internship program, one of the attorneys said to me, find someone who has a career path you like, or has ended up where you want to be, and study them. See what they did, see the decisions they made, see kind of how their career maybe went from one thing to another, you know, assess how different people got to where they are. And you can try to emulate that, or maybe come into contact with similar people. And I think that was really good advice that I've certainly put to use in my career.
I think that's fantastic advice. That's something that I really try to do, even just learning from 2Ls and 3Ls. I've found that I learn a lot from their journeys. And so it's really great to hear y'all say that and hear how you found your places and where you're going to continue to go and how you're going to do that. So thank you. I have a question from the audience. This is from Troy Shen, sorry. The question is, can you speak to specific experiences or challenges that women specifically face in the armed forces or in law, which are both male-dominated environments, even though lately we've had a trend that law students are predominantly female, so a little bit over 50% are female or female identified students. But the profession is still largely male dominated. So how do you navigate that? And we'll start with you, Morgan.
Oh man, I was hoping to go last on this one. That's a really good question. I think a lot of the challenges, I mean, I am certainly not going to deny that there are challenges and issues within the military itself. And each branch has their specific, you know, issues, we'll call them. But I would say to overcoming them, it took me to look internally and kind of decide how, like, I myself am not going to bring down certain things from happening, but how do I find a place within that, and how do I serve my own goals? So I can tell you from my military experience, believe it or not, I didn't really like authority. So I always found myself kind of clashing with people over that. And so it's like, what it took me to say to myself, why am I clashing? Probably because there's a power struggle and I want the authority, I want the power. Well, they're not just going to give it to you, right? You have to earn it and put in time like anything. And so, you know, I let go of my daily pushbacks and I started studying. I took every single test to be promoted. I took every extracurricular type of, you know, certification that I could get. And I slowly started earning them. And those are things that people cannot take away from you, regardless of the structure. So by, you know, me becoming certified to be Sergeant of the Guard, well, now they have to rely on me to have authority and run a shift. And there I'm able to implement a lot of the things that I want to see or I think are correct. I would say in law school, I did not feel the same kind of struggles as I felt in the military. I would probably say a lot of my struggles in law school were more because I was older, and just like finding a place with my class, who was obviously a lot younger. But in the field itself, you know, I am really privileged to work with a pretty diverse team. There's men and women equally on the team. And I haven't really seen it come into play here. But what I will say, and just kind of reiterate, is if you put in the work, if you do the time, you learn it, you reach out to mentors that can help you, nobody can take away the things that you put effort into and you accomplish.
Thanks, Morgan. That's really empowering. Trinity, we'll go to you next.
Thanks, Morgan. That was so empowering. And it's funny, my answer is gonna be like a little bit opposing to Morgan's, because Morgan, you know, is trying to get power, which is great. I love that. I wish I was more like Morgan. Part of my issue, I think, especially coming out of the military, is I have this very ingrained structure of, you know, chain of command. So especially coming out of the military and being a woman, and I do have a lot of women in my office, which is great, but some of the supervisors are still men. So in addition to, you know, trying to connect, like, hey, I'm a woman, you're a guy, like, I want to be cool. But I also have like this not power struggle, but it's this dynamic of, I can't be like friends with you because there's this obvious power barrier to me. And I can't breach that until I get promoted. So I don't know. And I don't know if that's compounded by being a woman or just compounded by being me and not being like Morgan and not, you know, trying to get that power. I'm kind of afraid of it, and I really separate myself from that. I think that's one issue coming out of the military and being a woman going into law, is your supervisors are these men, and you do need to connect and network, and sometimes it is difficult. Another thing with having men as supervisors, especially as a trial lawyer, is you do get feedback from your own trial. And it's always very well-meaning. You know, they come in, they say, you know, you did X, Y, and Z really good. I would have done A, B, and C like this. And it's good to get that feedback, but especially as a trial lawyer, what they tell you is you really have to be authentically you, because if you're not, the juries will know that. And especially when you get a feedback from one of your male supervisors, because so many of them are males, you just realize you're like, I can't do what you can do. Like as a male, for a variety of reasons. Like, one, because that's not me. And two, because if I did exactly what you did, it would come across as not good to a jury or a judge for, you know, all these societal reasons. So you have to like take that advice with a grain of salt and internalize it. And you want to use it because you do want to use the feedback that your supervisor gives you. But you just have to realize that I don't know, it does come off differently being a woman, and it's unfortunate that we have to think about that, but we do, especially if you are going to be in front of juries and judges, the way you present yourself. You have to think about it maybe more than other people do, which is fine. And I think it's just a learning curve, and I'm new and I'm excited to get more experience and like, again, figure out who I am, who my authentic self is in front of the jury and when I'm arguing certain motions, because I want to come across powerful, but like not overbearing and also persuasive. There's a lot of things to think about. And I'm figuring it out myself, but it's just something to keep in mind as you go forward in this profession.
That was a fantastic answer, Trinity. And I think you're right about that balance. I forget her name, but the prosecutor from, which probably everybody's seen the movie, from the OJ trial, she talked a lot about that and the balance of being a woman in the profession and how things come off differently based on your gender. And that's a difficult tightrope to balance. And I imagine if your supervisors are telling you one thing that you know won't work for you, it's a fine line to walk. So thank you, Trinity. Alex.
Yeah, thank you. This is a great question and great answers so far. I want to talk a little bit about my Air Force experience. For some background, as public affairs officers, it's generally you and as a second lieutenant and all the commanders in a room. And so you are traditionally just the youngest, the only woman officer in this room with all of the decision makers. And in the public affairs career field, we say, you know, it's not just enough to get a seat at the table. You get that by you have a seat at the table with your name on it by, you know, just your position. But when you have an opportunity to get there, what are you going to do with it? And so I think that those are two really important kind of distinctions, that we talk so much about fighting for a seat at the table and fighting for an opportunity to have our voices heard, that sometimes we forget that, like, you have one opportunity to, when you finally get there, to make a positive impact in a way that you want. And I think with law school and in the legal profession, which is a male-dominated career field, it kind of is a similar analogy, that by being one of the only women in the room, you automatically are, people notice you, they see you. It's or any minority, you stand out. And how are you going to, for what reasons are you going to stand out? Are you going to stand out because you're able to kind of be a good representative for what you want and you know, in the professional environment, or are you going to stand up for bad reasons? And I think that, unfortunately, both in the military and in the legal profession, that comes as kind of a spotlight. I think that can be a lot of pressure, but can also be an empowering thing if you take the stance that I deserve to be here. I've worked hard to be here. I've earned my spot at the table. Now I'm gonna blow your world by, like, how amazingly prepared I am to take advantage of these opportunities. So yeah, that's kind of how I think about it. It's some days a lot of pressure to be a woman in this career field, or in any kind of minority. And to be honest, the veteran community, regardless of your gender, is not well represented in the legal profession. And so anytime you walk into kind of a legal office, you're in the minority. And so I think we have to stick together and hold each other, you know, band together and rise up together. But I think there's a lot of positives there as well.
Thank y'all. Thank you, Troy. That was a fantastic question. I garnered some fantastic answers and responses. And yes, it was Marsha Clark. That was the attorney. But I think that a lot of the disparities that come out when you think about law school and you go through law school really show when you get into the profession, that these are things that we are all yet to really delve into. So thank you for those really thoughtful answers. One of the things I want to know is, what were your favorite and least favorite parts of law school? And we'll start with Morgan again.
Oh no. Least favorite, all of it? No, I'm just kidding. Well, I'm not a huge fan of multiple choice. So every time finals came around, studying for some of those multiple choice things, just, oh no. I love writing. I love anything essay related. Give me space to explain myself and I'm all right. So I saw someone said contracts. 100%, I despise contracts. If I ever had to take that class again, I don't know what would happen. So like class wise, yeah, that was out. Property, not a fan. But constitutional law, I was able to take a First Amendment class. I got to take a mediation class and become a certified mediator. Sometimes like those extracurricular type classes that maybe aren't on your required thing are worth looking into, because you can get cool certifications. And I mean, that I got to be there and mediate some cases. So those are, I don't know. Finals are obviously the least favorite thing. I think, Jessica, you'd agree based on what you said.
Thank you, Morgan. Alex, we'll go to you next.
I think that my least favorite part of law school was the uncertainty. It is such a crazy scenario in which you are working very hard and you have no idea whether or not you are even on, whether you're on the right track, if you're performing ahead or below or in line with your peers until the last day, well, until many months after finals sometimes because of the way those are graded. And it is a really tough place to be. It's a really tough place to be, to say, like, I need to keep going. I need to keep briefing these cases. I know what I need to do to be successful when there's no feedback. And we come from an environment in the military in which there is constant feedback. Like, it is immediate and swift. So it is tough to be in a place in which you are just kind of leading yourself blindly in the dark. And so that is absolutely my least favorite part of law school. But my favorite part, kind of a pro con with that, is that it's pretty empowering to figure out that you can figure it out. And at the end of the day, you leave law school and you take the bar exam and you're like, wow, that was crazy. And I was put into an experience with essentially no like guideposts. And I was able to learn so much more than I thought I was and make positive connections with my classmates in this strange, weird virtual pandemic environment. Like, no one thought that they were going to be able to do these things before law school. And you leave with this sense of empowerment that I think I can do a lot more than I thought I could. So those are my two parts there.
Thank you. Great response. I think the lack of surety in law school, especially with the curve. I was like, oh, curves aren't so bad. And then I get here, I'm like, curves are the worst thing I've ever encountered in my life. Trinity?
Yeah, my answer is going to be the same. Both my favorite and least favorite is the extracurriculars that I chose. I did it to myself. Morgan talked about it and she had better foresight than I did, but I did law review because I thought it would look really good on my resume, and maybe it did, but it was awful. And I don't know, personally, it didn't open, it didn't open doors that were worth it to do all of that extra work. And it was my own fault because I thought it would look good and prestigious, and I'm sure it did, but this is much more work than I think I got out of it, and I didn't love it. On the flip side, I did pick some extracurriculars that I really loved and I think did help me, and it made my resume look like more rounded and look like a whole person as opposed to just a person who's trying to check all these boxes. So I was part of a women in criminal law group, and I was part of our military veterans group and our public interest group on campus. So those are all things I actually liked. Every time I got together with those students, it was people who I enjoyed, and we were doing work that was important. Not that law review is not important. It's important for some people, just not me. So yeah, I don't know. Extracurriculars are really important, and I would encourage you to curate things that reflect who you are and not who you think people want you to be.
Thank y'all so much. That's great. And also some pieces of advice is in there from all three of you. So thank you for that. And the last question before we go to audience questions again, is going to be the best thing that you've done as an attorney and any advice that you have for either aspiring law students or just advice that can go towards any career, but in the transition that you've made to a professional career. And we'll start with you, Trinity, and feel free to take a second to think over your answer.
Yeah, the best thing I've done as an attorney, it's, I feel like my position is very interesting because on a micro level, I really deal with people, victims and defendants alike on really terrible days for them. So it's hard to say, a certain win or loss was really good because you're dealing with real people. I will say though, on a macro level, I do love my job because we really get to emphasize community safety. And I think that's really important. So it plays really nicely into my service in the military, where I feel like I get to continue that service in just a different capacity. So I just really love my job overall. I think it's very important. I do feel like I do important work, but again, the day-to-day, it's hard to say because it's very powerful and real stuff happening to people in our community. As far as advice that I would give, I would encourage everyone who is thinking about the law or who is currently, in their careers to actually talk to real lawyers. I think Alex and Morgan both talked to this. Talk to people who are where you want to be and see, if their work-life balance, their career goals match with what you ultimately want. I think that's the best way to figure out a path. Like Alex said, it's not linear, but you can kind of figure out from other people's experience what that path can look like for you and if it's something that you ultimately want. So one of my other least favorite things about law school was networking, but my advice is to network. So definitely make those connections, talk to those people, including veterans. We always love talking about our service and building each other up. So that's my advice.
Excellent advice. I know that networking is tough and it can be exhausting on top of law school, but it is important to make those connections. And I think something that really stands out to me is people say networking feels so fake, but it doesn't have to be fake. You can make those genuine connections, especially when they're with communities that you're a part of. So connecting with veterans, connecting with people in the region you want to go to, and not just doing it for the sake of networking, but doing it for the sake of connecting with people. So Alex, we'll go to you next.
So I'm still in the first year out of law school for me, clerking right now. And so it has been the best part of my career. It's incredible to get to like learn hands-on from a judge directly and get to talk about the issues deeply and what goes into every single kind of decision that they make and what's persuasive and not persuasive. So just the day-to-day conversations that we have about the law, about what makes a good oral advocate, what makes a bad oral advocate, is pretty amazing. And I learn new things every day. And it was a job that I almost didn't take. I was supposed to go to a big law firm right after law school. That was the plan. I was really excited to kind of start my private corporate job. And this opportunity fell in my lap in the last few months of law school. And I really had to make a decision of, do I want to say yes to a new adventure, say yes to a learning experience? And it's been incredible. And so my advice to both law students and students considering applying to law school is to be open to those kind of experiences, because it's the practice of law. The legal professions are so long. Your careers are so long. They can take so many different paths. I think it's becoming less common for people to be in one job for 20, 30 years. It's totally fine to jump to new jobs, jump to new experiences, even within your student organizations in law school and beyond. It's kind of an exciting time to be a young attorney, because we have that flexibility to say, and what Morgan said earlier, to reevaluate, what do I want in this moment at this time? Let's pivot to something that may, speak to me more. And so in closing, my advice is just to be open to those experiences, say yes to things that'll let you learn and grow, and not be afraid to kind of jump into those. And I think that from a military background, we are probably more comfortable doing that than maybe your average student, because we've been asked to do it so many times.
Thank you. Morgan?
Yeah, I think to answer the question about the best thing I've done as an attorney, I think I'd rather just maybe talk about the best thing about the law and being in the practice of law. Is before all of this, I clerked for a district court judge here, and that was that gave me a really interesting perspective. So here's an early piece of advice. If you can clerk, do it. It's such a unique experience. Seriously. And like Alex has said, it's going to just change your whole outlook on the law and change how you practice as an attorney. But from that position, from the clerking position, a lot of times when we hear the law, we think, okay, judges, attorneys, and that's it. That's who we think of. But the law applies to the public. The people who are most affected by the law are everyday citizens. This court opinion, we read a bunch of cases where we read this, all this stuff, and yeah, it affects us because we're citizens and we interpret it or help our clients understand or advocate for clients. But at the end of the day, I mean, those things are affecting everyday citizens, people's lives. And they are kind of the missing perspective a lot of times from when we talk about the law. And I would say the attorney position in and of itself, even if you don't think that it's affecting the community or the people around you, it is. So I think one of the best things about that is just the hope you can give to people who are often not talked about when we talk about anything to do with the law or the legal profession. And a piece of advice, another one. So one of the things we haven't really touched on, and then it just kind of popped into my mind, is like anything, but in the legal profession specifically, your reputation means everything. So it's the kind of work you put in, the kind of, are you reliable? I know from clerking, like, a judge saying something about you or having opinions about you, I mean, can do a lot. But it applies throughout. I mean, what you have to think about how you want to be described as an attorney: hardworking, a zealous advocate, always prepared when they come to court. Those are the kind of things that you can think about how you want to be described, and then you can work towards figuring out how you fulfill those in the best way for you. And I would a lot of, I think I rushed into it and thought about it later. And sometimes it's good to, while you're maybe still in law school or making decisions, or maybe just interning or clerking, really think about what kind of attorney you want to be.
Thank you. It's excellent advice from all three of you. Thank y'all for really giving some thought-provoking some comments to our audience members and to myself. I appreciate that. Last question from the audience. Have you all found it important to stay connected with other veterans to this day? If yes, how, and has it helped you in your careers? Trinity, we'll start with you since you mentioned it in your last answer.
Yeah, I can think of a very specific example off the top of my head. I was in, like I said, the military veteran student group at Lewis and Clark, and one of the other students is now a defense attorney who works in my same courthouse. So it's just nice to have a connection with someone who would usually kind of be on the opposite side, like, usually adversarial. It's nice to be able to come to him like, hey, obviously we're not like doing anything weird, but it's just nice to have a connection outside of like a specific case we're working on. I don't know. It's nice to have a connection just outside of the job. So yeah, definitely. As far as, from my time previously in the military, I don't have a lot of other lawyer, now veteran friends, from when I was in 2015. But it's always nice to stay connected in general. And I have been able to talk to some of those people about their interest in law now. So it's nice to see, I don't know, just connections build over time and how those change. So yeah, it's always good to stay connected in all sorts of capacities.
Thank you. And we'll go to Alex next.
Yeah, that's a great question. I talked a little bit earlier that the connection to the veteran community for me gives me a lot of meaning about putting my service into context about what I want to do with my legal career, providing kind of allowing me to give back to a community that's given so much to me. It really has grounded me and has made me remember, like Morgan said, that the law is about people problems, not written problems, and that there is, behind every law, behind every like litigation or transaction, there are people at the heart of all that. And the military at its heart is a people organization. We're about growing people and making them better. We're a leadership operation, not necessarily like a military operation. And so that was really ingrained in me in my military time, and it helps me kind of contextualize what the work is I'm doing today and what I want to do. And from a personal standpoint, some of my best friends and mentors have been in the legal military community. We talk a lot about networking, and I remember during like the OCI process, the job hunt process, I sent probably hundreds of emails out to associates at firms and different organizations saying, hi, my name is Alex Trobe. I'm a 2L at BU. I would love to connect with you. I see you also went to BU. And a lot of those went unanswered, but I never got an unanswered email from a veteran. So no matter what duration of service they had, whether they were a partner or associate or someone in the government, regardless, I mean, they would always give me a hard time about being in the Air Force, but other than that, they're like, what can I do to help you? I don't know you, but I trust you, and I want to help you in your career. Happy to meet for coffee, happy to connect you to whomever you want in the organization, pass along your resume. And it was really great for me to kind of find myself back in the legal veteran community and welcomed in such a warm way that says, and I think I speak for all of us on the panel, that like we are also here, we're here today to help you and to like provide whatever we can to the future and give back to the student veterans that may need assistance now. And like, this is just part of who we are. And it's a great community to be a part of. And so I would encourage people to reach out to their student veteran organizations, their like national organizations, and just like keep connected, because we're all here to pay it forward. And that's a really great team to be a part of.
Thanks, Alex. That's great advice. Morgan?
Yeah, so I would say, when I left the military, there was like a period where I was like, I can't do anything veteran. Like I felt like I had to sever who I was from that, not successfully, if I might add. But it was part of the process that I personally needed to go through, I think, to understand myself and know who I was, not as Sergeant Varty, but as, Morgan Varty, senior at Penn State or whatever. But once I kind of went through that and answered some questions for myself, like I immediately became connected back with the veteran community. But I know a lot of people really like to dive in, and that's great. That wasn't for me. I liked to have a limited connection where I thought I was doing something positive, but maybe not making it my complete identity. Because I mean, to this day, I still struggle with like, how much am I a veteran? Like all of these different things, but making that connection back with the veteran community, I did that in my career. I worked at WSP for almost a year. And part of that is because whether we like it or not, or try to run from it, I mean, for me, especially, the veteran community means everything to me. They're my family. I think like Alex said, like there's this trust that just happens. Like you might not know somebody, but you automatically just have something with that person based on that experience. And it's important to not let go of that, or you have to find a way that it works for you and your goals and in your life. But I would say most of the things I accomplished so far in my career really revolve around the fact that I served in the military. And I think what people can't be afraid to do is leverage that. Like, it's not like you're promising to go and then you're telling people like, oh, I'm going to go. No, you've done it. You've had the experiences. You worked hard. You earned that badge to wear and to leverage for yourself. And don't be afraid, don't be afraid to say you're a veteran or reach out to other veterans, and really don't forget about the community that's there. They're there. And like Alex said, we're all here because we want to help, and we went through this journey. And I'm sure for some of us, we kind of navigated it alone, and we don't want, people coming up behind us to do that. So reach out.
Thank you three so much, Trinity, Alex, Morgan. We really appreciate your time and the thoughtfulness that you put into all of your answers. We're really grateful. I'd like to pass it off to Cassie to close us out. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks, Jessica, and thank you so much, the three panelists. It's been a really great conversation. And one thing that I want to echo is this last question about community and sort of keeping connected with your veteran community is so important. And that is what we do at Warrior Scholar Project. We are helping bring back that community and helping support folks who are interested in higher education, whatever path that may be. As we heard, there's lots of different paths, there's lots of different ways to get there. And we want to walk with you on that journey and support you on that journey. And you can do that with us through Warrior Scholar Project. So if you're more interested in that, you can go to our website. You can email me directly if you'd like at celder@warriorscholar.org. I'm going to throw it in the chat right now. And just reach out to us anytime. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have about the process, the transition in general, and just helping you find that focus along your educational journey and into that academic environment, wherever that may lead you. And so thank you so much for everyone, the panelists and Jess, and all of our folks that are viewing on Facebook. Thank you so much for joining us, and really appreciate your time and thoughtful answers and discussion. And that, I think we're going to close out this WVED, but thanks again.